welcome once again to the FBC podcast as we reflect upon a tumultuous week. For those of you who are unaware of what we do, each week the three of us plus a fourth member, a wild card, pick two picks that we combine into an accumulator. One pick has to be over 1.4, one pick has to be over 1.65. We use the decimalisation version of betting rather than fractional version, but you can easily convert it one way or the other if you're using your whichever betting website is that you choose to use. So first and foremost, I guess we've got to reflect on what was a difficult, an exciting and ultimately disappointing weekend for the Football Bet Club.
Yeah, I mean, it started off so well last week. It's probably it's one of our closest weeks we've had without actually landing the star prize. My picks were Burnley and Barnsley to win, and Burnley was kind of done quite early doors, really. Well, they went 1-0 up quite early, fairly confident of that, and Barnsley, we were kind of waiting on with kind of 10 minutes to go, and it came up 1-0.
And they were playing Doncaster.
They were playing Doncaster, who were in poor form. So we were kind of expecting that one to happen, and it did. So I got 2 from 2, which we were all pretty happy around, and it was quite a buzz amongst, especially on our Twitter feed, and amongst us all really, because we were all doing pretty well. So they were mine. Nath, what about yours?
My afternoon was a roller coaster, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, the first bet.
I think they all were.
They all were really, and the wild card let us down, and it was the most. I think that we've had the sole blame, which is when one person's bet lets us down. We've had that a few times, but it was a really, we've had it a few times. But this was, for me, this was the hardest hitting one.
It was
because my teams were in a difficult position as the 3 o'clock kickoffs kicked off, and by the time I got to 5 o'clock. I got my 2 out of 2. So the first one, which again, I've got to say, you guys don't give me any credit for my bets. I am lambasted on this show every single week, but Rafe versus Livingston under 2.5 goals at 2.2 was a miracle of a bet.
It was. I'd agree with it was a miracle. You look like a genius now, but after 56 minutes of that game, when it was 2-0 and we needed under 2.5 goals to come in, you were sweating. You were absolutely sweating.
There's a fine line between a genius and
madness
and insanity.
You picked it out, so you obviously know the Scottish lower leagues better than most.
I do, and every week, every week I seem to, 2 out of the past 3 weeks I've had a Scottish lower league bet, and it's twice it's actually come off. But Rafe versus Livingston, under 2.5 goals, it wasn't easy because the first thing you don't want in both teams to score is a team to score in the first half, which Rafe did. Yeah, under 2.5, sorry. Which Rafe did. They scored in the first half, and then at half time, I was like, this is okay. Yeah. Justin gave me a bit of love on the Twitter saying, it's okay. 1 goal a half is okay. And I didn't want
law of averages.
The law of averages, yeah, and that's exactly what it turned out to be because Rafe won 2-0, but Rafe did score after 50 minutes early in the second half, and I was worried about it.
Great bet. Whilst it is a great bet, what I'd just like to say is that I'm hoping that those under 2.5 bets aren't going to now become a staple bet for Nath. I hope that you just maybe take it with a bit of caution.
I hear you, Greg. I think going through the mill of having under 2.5 bet, there's never a time when you can take your foot off the gas. 2-0, anything that happened, a penalty, free kick, it was a bit of a gamble, so I wouldn't recommend it to those people who are out there, and I'm not really going to back it too much. Well, I say that.
Even if it's 0-0 at half time, you could still have a little blitz of goals, so.
Yeah. But I still do think that you don't give me enough credit, but that was a great bet. And then actually one of the hardest ones was the banker, which is Forest Green at home to Eastleigh. Which I think was 1.9, and Forest
never a banker in a million years.
Well,
never a banker, no.
Eastleigh seemed to be a regular feature on this show, and now that we've found out where it is,
we've actually got more listeners from Eastleigh than anywhere else, apart from Greece. Just big up to the Greece massive out there, just listening in.
Yeah, thank you for the Greece representation on the Football Bet Club. But Forest Green, they were 1-0 down after an hour, and I was going through the mill. And this is when, because the first half was pretty dull, really, wasn't it? We didn't really, it wasn't really so good. But in the second half, we seemed to get a good rain of goals, and it went from being nearly to actually being on. So anyway, Eastleigh went 1-0 up, and then Forest Green went 1-1, and then John Parkin.
Big John Parkin
scored in the last minute to give me the 2-1 victory, which I was celebrating in my flat.
We all were.
Yeah, and I was constantly put it on the Twitter, goal, and I was really pleased with that. Yeah, but John Parkin, actually, John Parkin. Me and him go way back. Because he's one of those strikers. I think he's 34 now, and he's as wide as he is tall.
Yeah.
But he was once recommended to me back in the day in the early 2000s, of being signed on Championship Manager by my mate in the lower leagues, and he did me a great service, goal a game.
Wow.
I think he started his career at Chelsea, and he was very good on the early champ. So me and John Parkin go way
So when
back.
you said to us you had a story about John Parkin, it wasn't the real John Parkin you had a story about.
Well, in a digital sense, yeah, I'd say it is. Championship Manager counts, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose it does, but yeah. Okay.
So anyway, when it came to 4:45, I was bounding to the pub to watch the Bournemouth game, to watch the later kickoff come in.
We'll come to that in a moment, because I got a lot of grief off you boys, actually, to be quite honest, on Twitter.
Yeah.
I backed Bury to beat Colchester.
What a great
and I backed Mansfield to beat Dagenham and Redbridge. In the immortal words of Nathan, I backed on teams to lose rather than necessarily
Which is generally my mantra.
Which is, although you gave me a really hard time about it. So Colchester went flying into a 2-goal lead. After half an hour, Colchester were 2-0 up, and I was taking flack from all sides. Yet I remained calm. On Twitter, I just said, it's going to come.
It's all butter.
It's all butter, baby. And Colchester got a man sent off, and they conceded from that free kick, and then they crumbled.
It was a goal fest, wasn't it?
It was a goal fest. So, but Bury then raced into a 4-2 lead, and then added a fifth late on. 5-2 Bury. Yeah. Mansfield maybe sweat a little bit more. It was 0-0 at half time.
I was worried about. That's what I was really struggling to see that.
It was 0-0 at half time. Dagenham and Redbridge went up early in the second half. And it stayed 1-0 to Dagenham and Redbridge for quite a while. Then all of a sudden, Mansfield scored 2 very quick goals, went 2-1 up, then had a player sent off with 10 minutes to go.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I was very worried at this point. But straight after getting someone sent off, they went 3-1 up. They then conceded again, and that game ended up finishing 3-2. So both my picks really put me through the mill. But I'm proud to say that Bury, despite the nonsense that I took off some of you last week about picking Bury.
Sorry about that.
Well, it wasn't. To be fair, it was mainly Nathan who seemed to think that if they lost 6-0 to Coventry, then they must be no good. All 7 were a 3 o'clock kickoffs.
Yeah, so it's like 7 games, kind of like flurries of goals and everything going off.
Before we move on, I've got to hold my hand up and say I don't think I've given you credit, Justin, but how calm and collected you were when Colchester were 2-0 up. I mean, if you go and follow Justin on Twitter at FBC_Justin, you will see the evidence there where he really did. He was not worried. I think I even said, "You're 2-0 down," and then Justin came back with, "Don't worry, it's Colchester," or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
no, I
play.
totally believed it. Also, I was out actually, but I got in about 3:30, just as the second goal had gone in, and I turned on the BBC final score, the red button, and Chris Powell was on there.
Good old Chris Powell, England 1 cap.
As they went 2-0 up, Chris Powell turned to Dion Dublin and went, "I think they'll still lose this, And
we should maybe Chris Powell is the wild card.
Maybe he was on the FBC. Maybe he backed it. Maybe Chris Powell had backed it.
Yeah, no, but so seeing the composure of Chris Powell then gave me the belief to continue. And I never worried about Bury. Mansfield, I was worried.
In response, did Dion Dublin start talking about Holmes and the Hammer, or talking about how he's he's like selling
entrepreneur, isn't it?
But fair play. But we did our service here. We did exactly what we needed to do.
Yeah.
I think when we go on to the wild card, we should say that one of his bets did come off.
Yeah.
Which was?
Good question. I think we've totally forgotten. Well, let's not dwell on the successes that he had. I mean, let's not dwell on that, because after the flurry of goals that went in, I've totally forgotten what he did well.
I can't remember either.
At about 5 o'clock on Saturday, I was absolutely buzzing. We got 7 out of 7 right. We needed one more to bring home the bacon, as they say. And I went down the pub, had a little cheeky pint, was absolutely on top of the world. Coming back in to watch Bournemouth versus Everton in the FA Cup.
Which actually you alluded to on last week's show, where you said if everything comes off, we'll be all there watching the Bournemouth game.
Guys, can I just intercede, and we won't spend too long on this. I've just remembered what his winning bet was. It was Watford to win.
Another FA Cup bet.
Versus Leeds, which was lucky actually. It was an OG, wasn't it?
I'll tell you what, let's not talk about that because I'd rather focus on how he's let us down.
Yeah. Agreed.
And... let us down is putting it mildly. I mean, let us down in a big way. But we have had a lot of sole blame efforts this year. We've had 6 now. That's our 6 times we've missed out on the prize by 1, which is pretty unlucky. And these things can happen to anybody. However, we did say, and I think it's almost getting to the stage where it could be a new FBC rule: no betting on the FA Cup. What do you think?
I alluded to my 2 rules. Last week, as I alluded to, one was don't bet on a derby because you don't know what's going to happen. And the second thing is don't bet on the FA Cup. Now, I mean, to put it in perspective to those people who foolishly didn't back our FBC, actually they did do the right thing by not backing it because it didn't come off.
Well,
but if you did back it,
missed out on pure excitement.
If you would have put a fiver on, you would have come up with £720. That was what it was on. So,
had it come off?
Yeah, had it come off. Yeah. So it was a big one, and the reason why it went through the mill, really, I went to the pub to meet a couple of mates before I went out for the night, and I was in there, and the worst thing was Bournemouth got a penalty. Bournemouth had it.
That was it. That was the only chance.
They had it, and they had Daniels, and it was a nice height for the goalie. Left hand side, to keep it down to his left, a nice height, and it was just as soon as it happened. Head in my hands.
And they missed the rebound as well.
As an Everton supporter, I have to say it was a very strange experience to watch that game because I was obviously really hoping we'd win, but at the same time, I wanted us to concede. It was a very uncomfortable experience and not one I really want to repeat. So,
well, I thought Everton were miles better in that than Bournemouth. They had a bit full strength team out, and I thought you guys, if Bournemouth got a cheeky goal, you could have then just been the full Everton supporter that you are and just enjoyed it. You would have still won. You would have won 2-1. I think Bournemouth just needed that penalty.
But I was still delighted to see Robles save the penalty, just because I think it does mean the end of Tim Howard, really, finally. And so I'm delighted that Robles has done that. However, obviously, that was tinged with the issue of it losing us a great deal of money.
There was a lot of where is Tim Howard when you need him when he saved that penalty, because we had no confidence as a group in the FBC, mainly from Justin's kind of opinion of Tim Howard. He's kind of spread throughout.
I don't think it's just my opinion.
I think obviously we know that now Chris Powell is an avid listener of the FBC, but I think also Roberto Martinez clearly listens, because every time we back Everton to win, he plays Tim Howard in goal and they lose. And every time we bet on some goals, he plays Joe Robles and then he saves.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I said last podcast that I wasn't confident of it, and I didn't know how that game was going to go. What I failed to mention, and what I think the where the wild card hasn't done his research, is that with the exception of the loss to West Brom, a game he backed us to win, we haven't conceded a goal for 5 games. There's been 3 or 4 clean sheets before that, 3 clean sheets before that, and obviously we conceded 1 against West Brom and then another clean sheet against Bournemouth. So it's now 5 games, 1 goal conceded. So I really think the wildcard didn't do his research on that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have backed the BTTS.
I think some people say the wildcard doesn't need to do research. He's a mystical shaman. Well, lives in the
Nathan,
fields.
you say he's got an inside link.
I heard today from one of my colleagues at work that actually his cousin is Dele Adebola, who is
the virus had Ebola.
Trounced through the lower leagues. Playing for my team, Coventry, Birmingham, started at Crewe, been all over the place. But actually...
he was on Britain's brainiest footballer.
Really?
Yeah, it was won by Clark
Who,
Carlisle.
the wild card? Or
he may have been, but Clark Carlisle won it, but Dele Adebola got to the final.
Yeah. Apparently the wild card...
I don't think they got a very high standard of footballer on it, to be fair.
Apparently he describes him as a mustard striker. But I don't think many people share that, apart from maybe...
Dele Adebola describes the wild card as that?
No, the wild card describes Dele Adebola's striking ability as mustard. But
French
I don't
rain
think many
or Coleman's? Dijon?
Grey Poupon?
maybe a kind of average store own brand, to be honest. But,
French's.
But that was I've got to say the biggest disappointment of the season. Seeing Daniel save that penalty,
to be honest, of my life.
Missed that penalty, and Joel saving it, and it would have been, imagine what the Greeks are saying now. I'm massive following in Greece.
I know. If you're listening in Greece, that's obviously huge. I mean,
things have obviously got very desperate in the Eurozone.
I'm not trying to make any generalisations about the Eurozone or the Schengen area at all, but yeah, to go from that sort of high point at 5 o'clock to a very, very low state.
Yeah.
I'm sure the wild card echoes those sentiments, because to have sole blame is never nice.
If you're not
just to let
if you're not put off by the wild cards bets, you can still follow him on Twitter at wildcard_FBC. We're gonna, despite last week's disappointment, we're gonna crack on this week.
Yeah.
So let's go over to Greg.
Yeah, so like you say, despite the disappointment, there was lots to be quite happy about, because we did, get 7 out of 8, which is a fantastic strike rate, I guess, and we were very unlucky there with the missed penalty not to do well. So again, I'd just like to say another 2 out of 2 for me, which brings my strike rate up again.
6 out of 6 for 3 weeks.
I've only lost 5 picks since Boxing Day, which isn't too bad.
That is a very good record.
There's quite a lot of football since then, so I'm doing all right at the moment, but. Anyway, not to go on about it. I can still be caught. So let's see. Hopefully, I'm going to get 2 out of 2 this week.
Actually, just moving on from that, because you were bottom last year.
I was bottom last year.
And then you are streaks ahead. Yeah. You are streaks ahead this year. And
you want to know what my secret is?
What is your secret? Because you went through a terrible run last year. I remember you saying you were thinking too much about it. About who to back, maybe doing a bit too much research. What's the difference?
I've just bought some new boots, and I've just started to walk with a bit more sort of swagger in my step. And I've had a lot more, massage work. I've had some physio, and I'm just finding it a lot easier.
Seriously, is there anything that you can give advice for?
Yeah, just to not take stats so seriously, and to look at instead of just looking at season stats, look at recent form. Perhaps look at like the last 8 game stats or. And also, if you can, maybe look at the kind of team sheet news. I'm thinking like individual players missing. So sometimes if your top strikers out or your top centre backs out or something like that, that might make it. You can't always do that, especially if you're going down to like Scottish League 2. It's quite hard to find that kind of information. But I'm not too sure really, apart from just looking at recent form.
Okay. So on to this week's. What have you got for us?
On to this week's, I've now gone for teams with quite poor recent form, which is Plymouth have had a little bit of a wobble. So I'm going for Plymouth. Oof. Plymouth, because they're at home against a terrible, or at least a leaky Notts County team. So Notts County are having quite just a crazy season where they just concede goals all the time. Yeah. And I think Plymouth, who have had a bit of a they drew, I think 0-0 midweek with someone like Yeovil. They're 1.8, and I think that represents quite good value for a team that's still second in the league and is quite a decent outfit still at home.
Yeah, they've. I think we've lost quite a few.
Yeah, we have. They're not the favourites of the FBC.
Accumulators on Plymouth, and it seems to be when I back them quite often. I've backed them, I think, twice, and they've lost both times I've backed them this year.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe the Plymouth gods will hopefully smile down on myself, but
so that's 1.8.
That's a 1.8. So I think that's quite good as my higher value tip, considering they are almost top of League 2. And then I'm going for another team that's flying high in League 2, or at least trying to, which is Accrington, who are in very good recent form. Yeah. So they're flying high, and they're 1.6, I think. And so they're going to hopefully beat. Barnet, yeah, that's right. So Barnet are.
Barnet got a big result midweek, though.
They did get a big result midweek, but I just think that away from home, they're not very good.
That's probably fair.
In fact, hang on, I've got the stats here.
Just to be clear, they beat Portsmouth yesterday.
But at home, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, it was at home. It was at Underhill. Yeah. So on Tuesday night they beat Portsmouth.
And Portsmouth, they were a bit of a favourite of mine pre-Christmas because they were in quite good form.
Yeah, I remember you giving quite a big speech on the first FBC podcast about big ups to Portsmouth.
Yeah, biggest fan-owned based club in the biggest fan-owned club in the Football League. But I think they were a team that scored lots of goals down there, and I think that the goals are starting to dry up a little bit. So I've kind of held back from backing them.
Who, Portsmouth?
Yeah.
I mean, Portsmouth are in quite good form as well. But I know, looking at the stats here, so Barnet have got the second worst away record. Guess who's bottom of the away record in League 2?
York City.
We always hammer them every week, but they got a terrible away record. So Barnet's just as bad as York, actually. And Accrington have got the 4th best home record in the league. So I'm hoping, considering they're in good form, they're scoring quite freely, I expect that one to come in. But who knows, I suppose. So yeah, Plymouth and Accrington are mine too in League Two, which has been good to me. So anyone else?
I'll go next.
Okay.
I've backed one on a Monday night, so it could be a very tense Monday night.
You might be in a
for
wild
us.
card scenario where everyone else has come
I
off.
could be in a sole blame wild card hot seat scenario, but actually, as we find out later on, the wild card will probably have already lost for us earlier on. So that's Brighton to beat Leeds. It's 1.83. Leeds are indifferent at the best of times, win some, lose some, not great away from home. Brighton still pushing for promotion. I think it could be tight. I think Leeds don't seem to get thrashed very often, but I think Brighton will edge that one.
They had a good win midweek, didn't they, Brighton?
They did have a good win midweek.
I think it was 4-0, wasn't it? I think
early goals as well. Yeah.
But if you think about Leeds, I mean, Leeds played Watford in the FA Cup last week.
Yeah,
and although Watford didn't have their strongest team, they only lost 1-0, and that was an OG, which is a great finish. I like nothing more than a good own goal. And the ball came all the way from the right, and the defender, he watched it all the way, just passed it into the bottom corner. It was a lovely finish, but off his shin, I think.
But as you've said in the past, the FA Cup is not necessarily an indicator of how a team will actually perform in the league.
Yeah.
True.
So Leeds might have really gone for it against Watford and still come up.
How much do you factor in the Monday night effect that Leeds fans aren't going to really be travelling down on a Monday night when it's probably on Sky, is it? I don't know. Or at least
it will be on Sky.
So are Leeds fans, it's a long way to go Leeds to Brighton on a Monday night. There's going to be hardly any support there. Does that factor into your equation or not really?
No.
No.
To be quite frank.
Okay.
No, it does. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to the result either way. So my second one is exactly the same odds. It's 1.83, and that is. Right.
Shall we just insert
Gillingham
Gillingham
at home. They are playing Chesterfield. Chesterfield are down near the bottom, not in the bottom. Chesterfield actually got a big result at the weekend, beating Crewe in a 6-pointer. But they were at home and they only narrowly beat them.
Crewe no Gillingham.
Crewe no Gillingham.
Crewe are poor,
but they're also no Colchester, so you can't.
Yeah.
But Gillingham, I've backed them a few times. They tend to not concede many goals. They tend to win their games 1-0, 2-0, and I would expect them to do exactly the same against Chesterfield on Saturday. So that's a 3:00 kickoff, 1.83. Nathan?
Yeah, so I'm going to, for the first time this season, I'm going to back Leicester.
Well done.
Leicester at home to beat Norwich, 1.5.
Do you think you've missed the boat?
Yeah. Just on their downturn.
I was thinking about putting Mahrez in my fantasy football team, but decided against it. No, but he, Leicester have obviously the biggest high-profile game, this season so far, losing 2-1 at Arsenal. I really hope that they bounce back. I love that phrase, bounce back ability.
Yeah,
and I really hope they've got that this week.
You know who coined that phrase?
No.
Ian Dowie.
Really?
Yeah, Ian Dowie created that phrase.
Was a football manager and a player but looked like a boxer.
Yeah.
And has he got a doctorate or PhD?
It must have been honorary. I don't think he's...
No. He's really massively educated.
Is he smarter than Clark Carlisle and Dele Adebola?
I think if he had been in the lower leagues at the time that programme was filmed...
Those three look like... Yeah.
I think Dowie would be the country's smartest footballer. Also, former player for Hendon FC, which is my non-league team.
That is some strong Ian Dowie knowledge.
Also,
that's just been delivered to the FBC listeners.
I remember back in the day, there was quite an infamous time when he was on the sidelines of the pitch because he got a knock or something, and his contact lens came out. And he was trying to find it, and he was scratching around in Son's bench on all fours, trying to find his contact lens, and they couldn't find it. I don't know what happened next, but obviously he's also blind, almost. No, contact lenses.
Controversial views.
A real non-fact.
Ian Dowie's not blind, but
if we were on iTunes, it's a fact, mate.
He's also one of Northern Ireland's top strikers, isn't he? Didn't he play for Northern Ireland
He did play for Northern Ireland. I wouldn't ever call him
a top striker. Not top
striker.
Yeah, he's not Harry Redknapp's top striker, is he? He's not an by Hill, is he?
He would have played for Harry Redknapp at West Ham, I believe.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, so
moving away from the Ian Dowie chat. So Leicester to beat Norwich at home, 1.5. I really hope that, to quote Ian Dowie, bounce back ability that is relevant this weekend. I think everyone's kind of hoping for that.
Norwich are having a bit of a terrible season now, aren't they? They're in danger, aren't they?
They're in massive danger. They
started quite well.
They're leaking goals. I'll be honest with you, I was delighted that they took Naismith off our hands for nearly £9 million.
Good pocket of money for him. You always do well when you sell players.
But at the same time, I thought he would be a good player for them to get. He'd be the kind of player you want in that kind of scrap. But their defence is so poor.
Well, this is the reason, because you're right. They haven't won in 6. They've shipped 17 goals in. There's 17 goals in their last 6. But they're similar to Bournemouth. A lot has been made in kind of the public domain and the media of how Bournemouth have strengthened going forward, but they're worried about the back four.
Yeah.
But Norwich, they bought Naismith for a hefty amount of money, but they haven't really bought at the back either, and they are shipping goals. And also, they are the team that has the shame recently of losing to Aston Villa. So if they can lose to Aston Villa, they can definitely lose to Leicester.
On that point about Aston Villa, I cannot believe, and I left this open deliberately, no one picked Stoke to beat Aston Villa.
Yeah,
Stoke
I looked at
1.6 to beat Villa at home at Stoke. There's no chance Villa are going to get a result.
I looked at it and I just did not. I don't know. I have no luck in the Premier League, to be quite frank, and I preferred the odds that I would get on the other two.
Yeah.
I fancied the other two just as much as that, and I liked them. They had better odds.
If it was the Stoke of maybe 4 or 5 months ago, they had a big win against Man United. They were on good form. They had Almatovic out there, and he's currently out. I think he's injured. So they have struggled a little bit more, and it's having an impact on their form. I do agree with you. It is a bit of a, they're not far away from those two teams. Maybe there's a bit of added blood in those two games, but I mean, Aston Villa are absolutely terrible, and that's a fair point. I mean,
and what Julian Lescott was doing about after the game when he didn't even try, and then he was on Twitter showing everyone his new car,
which apparently was in his pocket.
Oh, it's just terrible things going on there. So they're down, they're gone, and so we should be backing every team against Villa at the moment. I think.
You think about when they go down, you think about the top players being picked. I mean, you're probably looking at Jordan Ayew.
Yeah,
who else are you thinking?
Oh, he's good. Yeah,
he's a good player. But do you know? I was talking to an Aston Villa fan the other day, and I didn't realise how much money they'd spent on such average players.
Yeah, rather than buying a player for 25-30 million, they spent 40 million on maybe 5 or 6 players.
I couldn't believe it. Jordan Veretout, 9 million. Idrissa Gueye, 9 million. Really average players.
Yeah.
And because I said to this person, where's the Benteke money gone? And he said, it's been spent. But I can't believe that you've spent that money and got those players. When you see someone like Shaqiri going to Stoke for 11 million or whatever it was.
Good signing.
I can't believe that they've spent such big money on such average players.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to say at this stage of the season, maybe don't take on the relegation teams because they're fighting for their lives. But there is not any sign of that from the Villa team at all. They're not fighting at all. There might be teams down there doing that, but Villa just look like they're beaten already. I mean, Stoke will probably lose 5-0, but now. I thought that's still at 1.6. That was good value.
No, I think anyone at home against Aston Villa, you would be surprised if someone didn't bet against them because they're so poor and they don't have any spirit. But my next bet was going to be, because I looked at my bets last week, and I thought it was going to be Watford-Bournemouth, both teams to score. But having gone through the emotional rollercoaster of last Saturday, where Bournemouth missed a penalty, I still think that will be both teams to score. I was also very close to backing a Watford win, because Watford are in good form. And
they're a better side than Bournemouth.
They're much better, but I've gone continental.
Ooh.
I do remember 2 or 3 shows ago I said that I don't watch the Serie A games, so I wouldn't feel comfortable backing them. However, I've gone for AC Milan to beat Torino at 1.7.
Going to Milan for the.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm terrified of that bet.
Yeah.
Torino aren't a bad side.
They're not bad.
AC
they
Milan
score goals
are
well.
a hugely disappointing side. They have been for a couple of seasons now. That terrifies me.
The reason why I backed it, I mean, there's not too much between. There's only a 12-point difference in the league. So AC Milan is 6th, Torino are 11th. The last game that they played away at Torino, I think it was November, was a 1-1 draw. And Torino do seem to be a bit of a draw specialist. They don't get.
So you're backing the Milan win?
Yeah, but I'm backing the Milan win, and the main reason is because in 12 games away from home, Torino have only yielded 12 points. So it's quite It's quite a it's a narrow thing there. They're only getting a point.
So they
against-
win 1 out of 3 at home from home.
No, or they draw every time they go away. But that's not even better, is it?
Either way, we're screwed.
I did think about this. I was a bit under pressure because the Watford Bournemouth was, the Bournemouth thing was so raw. I thought, who am I going to bet on? And I saw this, and I was actually going to bet on AC Milan last week against Genoa, but I didn't like the look of Genoa's conceding record because they've got a good defence out there. But they still won 2-1. AC Milan did at home, and I think that hopefully.
What time is it on Saturday? I think it's at 7:45. I think it's a late one.
It's a late one. It is, you're right, yeah.
So it could be in a similar situation where we're...
No, because Justin's is Monday.
Monday. And Wildcard's got one on Sunday as well.
Oh, so we're going to string this one out for the whole weekend. So at least it's not a flurry of activity like last time.
Well, speaking of the wildcard, maybe we should move on to his bets.
They're both contentious in their own way. Can I just say, before we look at his bets, I am delighted that Everton are not playing this weekend. Because he loves backing us to win or backing both teams to score, and he's had no luck in doing so. So I'm just delighted that was off the table and not an option for him this weekend.
Yeah, I
would have to hear. I'd agree with you.
Yeah, he seems to back a lot of Everton. Maybe he's got some sort of Everton connection. Maybe he's like Bill Kenwright's masseuse.
The only thing is, I think that he's just bought into this whole media frenzy about the way we play football and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
If you listen to the media, we're like the Barcelona of England, but we're clearly not very good.
I don't know what media you.
I think Neymar, Suarez, and Messi are not incomparable to cleverly.
Lukaku and Torre.
I'm not saying.
Aaron Lennon.
We've been, people have talked up the style of football we play as, tiki taka to a certain extent, which is just wrong. And I think people are so kind of the attractiveness that we attack with glosses over people's kind of eyesight, and they're kind of blind to the gaping problems that are at the club.
As a lover of football, as many people tuning in are, if you're not an Everton fan and they're not playing the team that you support, I would still, if you have the opportunity, go and watch Everton, because it is always a brilliant game of football. I mean, Justin and I went to Everton away at Chelsea a few weeks ago. I've been to a few Everton games over the past 4 years. You've been to more than than my share. But it is always, as a neutral, it is a spectacle, and maybe that's what his influence is betting. But
let's hope for a spectacle in Sunday's bet, which is the Carling Cup final. Well, not the
Yeah.
Carling Cup, sorry.
The Capital One.
Sorry, the Capital One
Let's
Cup
just call
final.
it the League Cup.
The League Cup.
Because I don't really want to promote Capital One being a high interest credit card. Well, there's that one. What's your rule on betting on the League Cup, by the way? Obviously, you have your rule about betting on the FA Cup.
I mean, the issue here really is that it's a final. So he obviously Liverpool versus Man City, 1.7. The issue there is
both teams to score. He's gone.
Both teams to score, of course. Yeah. I mean, which I don't think it will be a 0-0, which is good. But betting on a final is a very difficult. It's not quite betting on the FA Cup or a derby, but betting on a final, you never know what might happen.
There's that, and there's, another issue. I don't know if this betrays anything, but Manchester City are playing right now as we speak, and Liverpool have got a game tomorrow. Which could influence how things happen. If Sturridge, for example, picks up an injury tomorrow night, again.
Man City are 2-0 up, by the way.
Yeah, but if Aguero was to pick up a knock and not be able to play for Sunday, that would massively change how you would perceive that bet.
I would say that. I would agree with that. You have to think about that. That Sturridge is back, which is probably a big thinking. You would expect him to start.
He scored against Villa, and he looked like he could bag a handful.
He scored a header against Villa.
I've got to say, most players, as much as I dislike Daniel Sturridge, his face and his dance and everything about him, for a player who spends so much time injured, he always looks so fresh when he comes back from injury. I suppose it's because he's not really injured and he's just being a wuss. But I've been amazed at how quickly he gets back into shape and back into form.
I think he has come back so many times and he has looked sharp and he's always scored when he comes back. I don't know about anybody else, but I was really impressed with Danny Welbeck this week. when he came on for Arsenal against Barcelona, and it's a similar kind of. He's been out for so long, and he's had a couple.
He had that great run
games.
down the left, didn't he? Where he kind of shook off a few challenges.
And he was really good. He's got a lot of experience to draw on. You think about Arsenal's championship credentials this year. Is he going to have a say? Obviously, he's already had one say in terms of the victory over Leicester.
Yeah.
Maybe he's an influencing factor we're not really giving him credit for.
If he has a bit of a run, he might even make the competition for the England place in Euro 2016 up front become a bit more competitive. We've got quite a few there: the Harry Kanes, Vardys, Welbecks, Sturridges. There's a bit more competition than there used to be now, at least. I'm not saying Danny Welbeck's going to get in there because he hasn't really done anything. But
I think he should. I'd have him if I'm taking 4 strikers and Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney is a kind of attacking midfielder / striker. I'd definitely take Welbeck.
The thing for me with Welbeck is that you think back to the Ferguson eras when he was playing big games at home or away against big teams, the Real Madrids, Barcelona's, whoever it was. He would always pick Park and he would always pick Welbeck. And Welbeck would always do a really good job in those big European ties. So he has a degree of experience, which maybe some of the strikers, Harry Kane hasn't got it, especially in Europe. Also Vardy, Sturridge's been out for a while, Rooney's Rooney. But maybe that might give him the edge.
Yeah, it's just whether he can score goals. If you're backing an anytime goal scorer bet, not that I recommended you should. But would you really Danny Welbeck? He's not that kind of guy he's going to guarantee.
I mean, that's the big question mark that's always been over his career is that he doesn't score enough goals compared to a Sturridge, for example, who is a goal machine whenever he's fit.
It's quite old hat. I think the reason why Ferguson used to pick him was because he was as good without the ball, dropping back and making extra man in midfield.
He works incredibly hard, but a lot of the time that hard work takes him out into wide areas and into deeper areas, whereas Sturridge doesn't come back. He stays in the final third. He's always in and around the box. Yeah. And I think that's probably why Welbeck more plays as a support striker if you were playing. Yeah. But I suppose we don't really have support strikers because so few people play with 2 up front anymore.
Yeah.
Sturridge is probably an impact substitute, but 1.7. So how do we feel about that? Do we think it's going to come off?
Liverpool, Man City both teams to score.
I'm not massively.
I don't really like cup competitions,
but
the wild card's been good to us in the past.
What?
So,
not last.
So let's give him a break on that. Let's look to the future now.
Okay.
Come on.
And
his other bet is in Germany, and it's one that I think you had a bit of consternation about.
Yeah.
He's obviously listened in. He's
in a bad place, isn't he?
Maybe
he's in a very bad place. Maybe he's moving over to Stuttgart for his bet.
Maybe he's in Greece. Maybe that's what it is.
I tell you, there's something about that.
We have a lot of listeners in Greece, but he obviously has booked Stuttgart at home at 1.53 to beat Hanover, and here, which the same. I'm going to say it again. You guys don't give me any credit, but you all seem to be copying me. He's backing on a team here in poor form to again lose because Hanover here have lost 5 out of the last 6. So they are really in poor form. Stuttgart are banging in goals. I did back them. Both teams score against Hertha. They didn't let me down. It was Hertha that did. So Stuttgart might be something that we're going to look at, and he's looked at it and he's decided to bet it.
I'll be honest with you, I like that bet.
Yeah,
I like that bet. That shouldn't let us down.
Yeah, I can see a second bottom.
Yeah, Stuttgart keep winning games 2-0. I'd expect no different.
They score a lot of goals. That is a 2:30, so hopefully that does come off because otherwise. The German games always kick off on a Saturday afternoon.
We have a full range of bets here.
So if it doesn't come off, it kind of ruins our accumulator activity throughout the week, which was actually, despite the trepidation and the heartache from last week, it did remind us why we do the FBC, because the Football Bet Club made my afternoon from 3 o'clock up until 7 o'clock. It was on a knife edge.
Yeah,
there was, and me and my friends were on the Twitter, on the WhatsApp, or whatever it was, and we were having a good laugh on the chance of trying to win some money, and it almost came off there. So a lot of love for the FBC came out.
Should we do a full round of the whole 8-game accumulator? So if you want to back the FBC accumulator, which you obviously do, then we're going to try and do it in time order there. The first bet would be Stuttgart to beat Hanover at 1.5.
Okay.
Then you're going into the 3 o'clock kickoff, so it would be Gillingham.
Yeah. Gillingham to beat
who was it?
Chesterfield.
Then you've got my picks as well, which were Accrington to beat Barnet. I can't remember what the price was now, but it was at about 1.6, I think. And then we've also got who was it against Notts County? Plymouth against Notts County.
Yeah. And then we've got Nathan's at 3 o'clock as well.
My one's 1.5 is Leicester to beat Norwich. and also
And
AC Milan to beat Torino.
And that's
at
Saturday
1
evening.
Saturday
and then
evening.
on the Sunday, we've got the Carling Cup final, both teams to score.
The League Cup
Liverpool,
final.
pardon me, the Rumbelows Cup. Both teams to score, Liverpool versus
And then
Man
to
City.
bring it home is your
to
bet.
bring it home Monday night, where we'll either be dead in the water or flying high and ready to party. Leeds to lose to Brighton. So Brighton to beat Leeds on the Monday night.
So yeah, get involved in that. That should be great. That should
Yeah,
be
so
great.
if you want a full list of the bets and also to listen to the podcast and also to leave us messages, there is a message board. Check out the website, which is www.thefootballbetsclub.com.
All feedback welcome. Yeah, anything you'd like to say or get involved in, maybe some advice.
Oh, well,
for
I
us,
should
or...
say actually, with regarding to feedback, you can also listen to us on SoundCloud, as one guy did. His name is almost unpronounceable, and he just left one word at the end of listening to the whole podcast. He just wrote "terrible."
But all feedback is welcome. It's a bit more constructive. That's what we want.
We also did get, however, like on SoundCloud from some lady called like DJ Sonia Bonyata or something.
Yeah.
Probably trying to up her likes on the social media.
I must say she has got a lot of followers and is following a lot of people on SoundCloud, so I'm not convinced she's
I also
a real
got
person.
a comment privately on my Twitter feed that said, "I really love the global bet of the week," and I just wanted to make sure that you keep plugging away with it. So I just like to keep going with that for my one fan out there. And it was a bit of a bad.
Can you
turn-up.
name your fan?
James? I obviously can't say his surname for legal reasons. But
Ebola.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the global bet of last week drew Shabab Al Khalil in the Palestinian West Bank League. Now, I went to that game.
You got special dispensation from work to go to the West Ham
on the internet, and it was a roller coaster ride, never a dull moment, and unfortunately the global bet didn't come in with Shabab Al Khalil having a last minute draw 2-2. But this
last
week,
minute draw, eh?
this week I'm going to appease our fans and go to the Greek Premier League for our fan base. And
that seems a little bit more reputable than the New Zealand League and the West Bank League.
Yeah,
which
the
we
West-
went to the
I
last 2
think
weeks.
that's a little bit cheaty, to be honest.
Really,
Well, who have you going for? You're not going for like Olympiacos, are you?
No, I'm going for Panionios.
Ooh, former team
against-
of Ronnie Whelan.
Whoa, that's outstanding knowledge.
Thank you.
Against Panionios versus Levadiakos, and they're an easy 1.66.
Yeah,
so,
I'd back that all the way.
yeah.
Well, if you really want more of Greg's
Global
bets of the week tips, you can go to @Greg_FBC. You can also follow me at FBC Nathan. For
more Scottish lower league.
for more
bits.
Scottish league understanding.
And yeah, you can follow me at FBC_Justin. And should you wish to, you can also follow the wildcard
Not recommended.
at FBC wildcard. Is that an underscore?
Underscore.
FBC.
Yeah.
No, so I've just said that wrong. At wildcard_FBC.
Yeah, and this last Saturday was the Twitter was on fire. So if you are following our Twitter this weekend, Saturday afternoon is the time.
Yeah, we got close last week, but this is the one that's going to come in this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it from us.
Yep.
We'll catch you guys next week, where we'll hopefully be a little bit richer. And please remember to gamble responsibly.
Well
We are just a couple of friends who put a small amount of money on every week. We do not gamble away our livelihood, our cars, our wives, or anything like that. So please remember that you should
Not
only
yet,
gamble.
Anyway.
Only gamble what you can afford to gamble. Please gamble responsibly.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Cheers. See you later.
See you later. Bye bye.